Hi, it's Jeremy Shatan from AnEarful, and today I'm going to be talking about 20 live albums that are fun to have on vinyl. Now, these might not be the 20 greatest live albums of all time, although some of them do intersect with what I would consider to be that list. But these are albums that you might see when you're out searching for vinyl that are just kind of fun to have in that format. Some of them are only available in that format, and they range in year of recording from 1960 to 2020. I'm going to go through them in the order they were recorded rather than the order they were released, but I'll talk about that too as we go along. First up, we have Miles Davis, live in 1960, with a special guest, Sonny Stitt. This is a great recording from the French radio service. The sound is immaculate. And this presentation by Return to Analog, a Canadian reissue label, is unbelievable. As soon as I put it on, I thought, this is why they have those jazz vinyl cafes. This is the kind of thing you could play there. It's also on clear vinyl, which is very nice. And it just sounds so, so good. Beautiful recording. And they only made 1,000 of these pressings. It's not a gatefold package, but it's nicely designed. They made 1,000 of them. You can get it medium price on Discogs. Now it's about $40. It's worth it. Next, we have a little combo that's been in the news lately called The Beatles. This is The Beatles live at Hollywood Bowl. It was recorded in 1964 at the Hollywood Bowl and not released until 1977. The Beatles felt, I think, a little meh about their live career. And George Martin, being the sonic perfectionist that he was, thought they couldn't get the sound the way they wanted it to be. But let me tell you something, this record is a blast. It's just like oral caffeine. It just makes you feel good. And later it was kind of recobbled as the soundtrack to 8 Days a Week, the Ron Howard documentary about the Beatles' live career. I haven't actually seen the film, believe it or not, but the album was quite a turnoff. The sound is overly compressed. The running order makes no sense. It just sounds terrible to me. You can find this record for about $12 used. It's still never been reissued. And I would go so far as to say that while I like Now and Then, it's a really nice song. There's a lot of resonance to how it was made and what it sounds like. But if the Beatles really wanted to blow people's minds, they could go back through all the recordings of their live performances and put out something like, the name of this band is The Beatles. Just cherry pick from Hamburg up till the final concerts at Candlestick Park. Or they could just release the whole concert from Atlanta 1965. It's just a great show. They had enhanced sound that night. They could actually hear what they were doing. And it's even more of a blast than this, but this was officially released and you can find it pretty easily, like I said, for about $12. Now, the live album as debut album is not a very common thing. One that I can think of that I really love is 5 Live Yardbirds, but I'm not going to talk about that one. Instead, I'm going to talk about Kick Out the Jams by the MC5, the Motor City 5, Detroit's finest. They were the big brothers to the Stooges. Thought they were a bunch of little crazy kids and tried to give them a leg up. But the MC5 were an amazing band in their own right and were wise to release this live concert as their first album because there's nothing like the MC5 on stage. They just blasted it out there. Twin guitar lineup, bass, drums, Rob Tyner on vocals. It's a crazy album. Now, of course, this album is famous because the first announcement, or one of the first announcements that actually announces the second song, a bad word is used. Kick out the jams, MFers. Now, that didn't go over so well with the retailers, so it was quickly censored. And it becomes Kick Out the Jams, Brothers and Sisters. You can actually hear the edit. It's okay. And now this copy I bought way back when, and I still recommend, if you can find a nice original pressing like this one, even if it's censored, it's well worth getting because it's an artifact of the time. You won't get this much hair on Spotify if you listen to it. Now, A censored version of this is going to cost you about $35, somewhere between $33, $35. It's a median price from Discogs. If you want to find the uncensored version, that's probably going to set you back $120 or more. But I say it's perfectly fine to have the censored version if you can find a nice old pressing of it. Now, the next album was also recorded in 1968, but not released until 1971. MC5 was released in 69, if I didn't mention that. This is called Live Yardbirds, featuring Jimmy Page, one of the Yardbirds' last concerts as a four-piece. Jimmy Page, Chris Trea, Keith Relf, and Jim McCarty. They were on the road quite a bit in the States. They were very popular here as a live band. This was recorded in New York City in 1968 and not issued until after Led Zeppelin became one of the biggest bands in the world, hence the featuring Jimmy Page. Now, this was released not only without Page's permission, but also with the addition of, let's just say, enhanced applause for some reason. It sounds like there's a cocktail party going on in a room next to the concert. Kind of annoying, but still, if you can find a copy of this, what a great thing to have. Now, Jimmy Page did eventually go back and remaster the whole thing and put it out as a CD you can buy, I believe, exclusively from his website. Maybe Amazon has it. And that's even more amazing, sonically speaking, because he cleaned it up. He got rid of the extra audience noises, and it just sounds fantastic. But this is a really fun thing to have. Now, fun fact, this is the most expensive LP I've ever purchased. It cost me $35 around 1980, and I really had to consider, what was I doing with my life? But I was a huge Yardbirds fan. I still am. When I saw this, I just had to get it. Now, because Page hadn't given his permission, it was withdrawn pretty soon after being issued, which is why it would cost me $35 in 1980. Now, in today's dollars, that's about $140. But according to Discogs, you can find a median price on this of about $44. So does that mean it's gone down in value? I don't know. I don't like to think about it. I spent the money back then. It's all good. I have the record. I have a lot of Yardbirds records, and I love them all. Next up, we have one of the first albums put out after Jimi Hendrix died. One of the first official ones, I should say. Now, we all know about the Band of Gypsys album, recorded at Madison Square Garden with a special band, and it was kind of a one-off, and some of it, to my ears, doesn't sound that great. He even agreed, thinking it was under-rehearsed, and obviously the Machine Gun is fantastic, but some of the other stuff gets a little ropey. However, Hendrix in the West, which is a compilation of performances with the Jimi Hendrix Experience mostly, from 1968 to 1970, is just a great live album. You wouldn't know it was a compilation. It flows really well, really well. It starts with a version of Lover Man, then you got Johnny B. Good, Blue Suede Shoes. It just sounds really great. And the other thing that is important about this album is that it has the best version of Little Wing, better than the Axis Bold as Love version. The live version of Little Wing, which according to the liner notes was, actually, I'm not sure where it was recorded. I have that somewhere else. Now, these songs were all sprinkled throughout more recent official Hendrix CD compilations, box sets, etc. But this is a nice blast of Hendrix on stage, beautiful sound. It was released on Reprise in 1972. This copy I bought in the early 80s in Canada. It's Canadian pressing of unknown date, and apparently has never been sold in this form on Discogs, but it's, very nice. It's got the gatefold. You can find an original Reprise pressing of this, a median price of $7. I guess it's sort of discredited now with all the more recent official Hendrix issues, but it's just a great record to have. If you want to have like 5 or 6 Hendrix albums on vinyl, this should be one of them. It sounds great. I love it. Next up, we do have what anybody would argue is one of the greatest live albums of all time. I'm speaking, of course, of The Who, live at Leeds. Now, this was recorded at Leeds University in 1970, released that same year to show the Who's prowess on stage and to give a little more oomph to some of the songs from Tommy. It was put out in this sort of fake bootleg cover, and even better, inside, it has this sort of interesting gatefold design with all these goodies. There's 11 or 12 pieces of fake paraphernalia, memorabilia. These are facsimiles, so they look like the real thing. They're all sized and shaped like the real thing. You know, an early promo photo of the Who, concert list, road trip right there, delivery note for one case containing 1 gross smoke generators, and a letter from EMI Records. It's just so cool. Great picture of Pete Townsend there. And it even comes with a full-size Maximum R&B poster, which I never hung, even though it's one of the greatest poster designs in the history of rock. Now, you can find this around, even with the stuff, for probably about $25. Now, my copy was a 1981 pressing that I found in Italy around that time, and it was released as part of a giant box set they did called Passages, or I don't know what it was called, Phases maybe, but they also sold them separately. It's got the limited edition sticker on there, but apparently you can find something just like this with all those inserts for about $25. Well worth it. Now, here's the other thing about some of these live albums. Many of them have been reissued in expanded versions. I have a 2 CD version of this that has a whole bunch of extra songs. I think there's been a box set since then that has even more songs on it. There's something to be said for concision. Even if this is not the full set list that they played at Leeds that night, the way it flows and the way it just puts everything in one place on 2 sides, of course, it just makes for an incredibly satisfying experience. By all means, get the box set, get the CD, be a Who live completist. They are one of the best bands on stage of all time. But there's something to be said for the original way that they carved these and crafted these records down into an LP. Next, we have the band. Farewell, Robbie Robertson, who we lost earlier this year. This was actually their first live album. It was recorded New Year's Eve, 1971, 72, literally across the time zone like that. Released in 72. Is famous for not only running through many of their greatest songs in fine style, but also having a horn section arranged by Alan Toussaint, the genius of New Orleans music. So it's on 4 sides, but one reason it's fun to have on vinyl is, first of all, you've got the gold embossed cover, and then you also have, it's a triple gatefold with lots of pictures of the concert. It sounds beautiful. This too has also been reissued in a massive box set. I didn't even know until not that long ago that Dylan shows up in the wee hours of the morning after they played even one encore, I think. And let me tell you something. We did a little vigil in the car after Robbie Robertson died, and we listened to that full deluxe set on Spotify. And it was great, but also it felt a little too long. It felt like you're beating us over the head with maybe a little too much. Had you been there, it'd be a different story. But as a listening experience, this is ideal. Dylan was not in great voice that night. He sounded like having fun, but he didn't sound that great. And the songs were pretty ragged by the time he got on stage. But this is just a great double live album. Like I said, it looks good, and it's not very expensive. You can get a copy just like this one. This is an original pressing from 1972 for about $16, median price. Now, Santana, also a great live band. They haven't released as many live albums as one would expect, but in 1975, they dropped a doozy originally in 1974. It was recorded in Japan in 1973. And that's the version I have is a Japanese pressing. It was kind of given the ultra deluxe treatment. I can't even really open it up all the way to show you, but it's got these panels, and then the panels unfold and become these posters that you can put together to kind of make different images. It is immaculately recorded, 3 discs of Santana at their most jazz fusion finest. It really, at first when I listened to it, I was like, they're almost too good. Like, it sounds like Carlos isn't even trying and just ripping off these triple time 16th note leads. But after a while, I just said, you know what? When it's that good, it's that good. And like I said, it sounds immaculate. I'm not really sure why this album doesn't get the love that it should. Maybe some people were turned off by that virtuosity, but there's nothing bad on here. 3 discs. You can probably find a copy just like mine, which is a 1975 pressing, for about $20. Will everything be in perfect condition? All those flaps and folds? Depends on who owned it before you. But mine's in pretty good shape. Next, we have Isaac Hayes. Now, Isaac Hayes put out an album called Live at the Sahara Tahoe. And that was in the mid-70s. And that was considered to be his classic live album. And it is. It is absolutely spectacular. You should listen to it in any form. But when it comes to buying things on vinyl, there's something about holding an artifact from the past that can make it feel more present. And that's how I feel about this album. This is called A Man and a Woman, and it's Isaac Hayes, Dionne Warwick. It's actually recorded in 1977 at the Fox Theater in Atlanta, Georgia. They each had their own band. It is kind of a wild thing. But the thing about it is that it may be the closest you'll get, if you didn't live in the 70s, of feeling the 70s. The 70s of those long, skinny microphones like on the Sonny and Cher show. The 70s of variety shows in general. It just has that feel, the glitz. There was a glitziness to the 70s with big hair, things would puff out, and ball gowns. And so it also has a cool kind of cutout on the cover, sort of a vignetting thing going on here, which you won't get on your streaming service. And frankly, it's very, very good, musically speaking. They go off. They have a song called Unity that I don't think appears anywhere else, which is the 2 of them together. An incredible version of Chocolate Chip to end off the concert. Also, they do, obviously, I Just Don't Know What to Do with Myself, Walk On By medley is fantastic. There's a lot of medleys, which is also a very 70s thing. I love this album. It feels, they cover feelings merged with My Eyes Adored You. I mean, how much more 70s could you get than that? But it still makes sense today as well, just as an expression of Isaac Hayes, the master of symphonic soul. And Dionne Warwick, what a voice she had. So highly recommended. You can find this record for about $3. Funny story, I actually bought this in Colorado, and it has a sticker on it, Mrs. Billy P. Givens, APO, that's Army Post Office, New York. So it was here in New York State, somehow made it all the way to Colorado. Now it's back here in my house. I don't remember if I paid as little as $3. I think it might have been more like $5, but if you see it, grab it. Next we have the funkiest of the funky, P-Funk, Parliament Funkadelic. This is another album I also think doesn't get the respect it deserves when people talk about the great double live albums. It's an epic cinematic run through of everything that P-Funk could do well. It's recorded in 1977, and it you can see that I bought it as a cutout, like most of the P-Funk albums I have. They're all on sale super cheap in the early 80s. Now some of them are even impossible to find. The great thing about them is if you can find them on vinyl, a lot of them come with goodies. They were very generous over there at Casablanca Records. Let's see what this one comes with. It comes with a 22 by 33 inch full color poster. So if you can find it with the poster, obviously you're going to want to do that, because who wouldn't want a little bit of this in their life? Now, I did not put the iron on any of my clothes. I wouldn't do that to you. Got it right here. And this is what it looks like. Take Funk to Heaven in 77. That would look cool on a shirt though, wouldn't it? Slightly tempted, but I don't know if its iron-on properties still work. Also, given the gatefold treatment with a lot of photos of their wild stage show. Believe it or not, I bought this, like I said, on sale, probably $3.99 for a double album with all the extras. You do have to probably spend about $25 in today's dollars to get this version of it in decent shape with the goodies. Next we have, I hate to say it, but another album I think doesn't get the respect it deserves, which is Stage by David Bowie. Now you could say to yourself, why buy that on vinyl? All his stuff is on streaming, it's on CD, it's been reissued in box sets and new pressings and this and that. Well, there's something to be said for the original RCA of the Stage album, which came after Heroes, Low, Heroes, Stage. People talk about Low, Heroes, Lodger as the Berlin trilogy. I put it to you that Stage is actually the third in the trilogy. Say after me, Low, Heroes, Stage. Low, Heroes, Stage all exist in the same icy, glossy, sonic universe. Lodger is in a different universe with the chattering guitars and busier drums. I love Lodger. It's a fantastic album, but it's a different sonic universe, different approach to songwriting. It doesn't really fit sonically, but it's become part of the Berlin trilogy. Whereas this is kind of like Bowie in his imperial Berlin phase, putting it on stage. Some people thought it sounded too slick. They didn't like the way there were synthesizers on the Ziggy material. Don't listen to them. And also, it's been rejigged in recent years by the people, the powers that be in the Bowie estate, fiddling with the song selection, fiddling with the track listing. This is the way to go. Stage, 2-record set, not very expensive. It's going to cost you about $15 for a double album. I will say that the artwork, while the cover is great, and then, yep, okay, in the back cover, and then, okay, inside again, we get the same picture. So maybe it was a little bit rushed, but it's a fantastic record. And remember, Low, Heroes, Stage. Next, we have another record from 1978, also from what I like to call the Partners in Crime, Lou, Iggy, Bowie. This is Lou Reed's Take No Prisoners, live. Recorded at the Bottom Line here in New York City, 1978. Now, yes, you can listen to this in this form on all your streaming services or probably find a CD of it, but you don't get the full cover. I mean, that's pretty cool. And also, you don't get the realization that in 1978, RCA put this in record stores. I happen to think it's fantastic, but it's filled with comedy routines and Lou Reed dissing everybody who dissed him first, or maybe even some who didn't. Like he takes a rip at Patti Smith at one point, gives it to Robert Christgau in infamous style. But don't forget that the recordings of the songs themselves can be incredibly powerful. The version of Pale Blue Eyes on here actually moves me more than the Velvet Underground version. There's something about how he seems to have to struggle to get to those feelings that makes you feel it even harder. It's a killer band he had back then. He also did a couple of songs from Street Hassle, including Street Hassle itself, I Want to Be Black. The set list is great. The comedy is hilarious. There's nothing like this one. And inside you get Lou Reed as the Dark Magus or something. Cool stuff. Cool stuff. A copy of that in this condition would probably cost you about $20 today. Now, I recently did a video with Dennis Ball where I talked about the greatest albums of all time, or the 10 best albums of all. I don't remember what it was. It was a fool's errand, but I did it anyway. And this is one of the albums I included on it. Bob Marley and the Wailers, Babylon by Bus. So I think this is not only one of the greatest live albums of all time, but one of the greatest albums of all time. Now, I know a lot of people are out there thinking, but it's live. The one from 1975, that's the one that has No Woman, No Cry on it and broke him in record buying public. And it's a better album. The Wailers were in tighter form, soaring on songs like Lively Up Yourself. The version of Punky Reggae Party is incredible. Exodus, they go into the dub section. The song selection is fantastic with the early stuff on side 2, Stirred Up, Rat Race, Concrete Jungle, Kinky Reggae. It really goes through his whole career, kind of from Catch a Fire all the way up through Kaya. And the Kaya song sounds better. Is This Love? Just an incredible album. And obviously you can listen to this anywhere, but if you buy it on vinyl, you get the die-cut bus windows, so you can actually take a pick over what pictures you want to have in the windows. It's also cool that everything is in context of the world tour from which they took the recordings. So if you live in Paris, if you live in Ibiza, if you live in Staffordshire, you can find yourself on here. Maybe you were at the show. Syracuse is on here, and Lenox, Massachusetts. I was probably asleep in my bed just down the road from where that was recorded in Lenox, Massachusetts, at Music Inn. Ah, well, I was young. But this is just a fantastic live album, great to own on vinyl. You want to find a copy that looks just like that? It's about $21. Next we have, yes, another record by The Who. And this one I was trying to figure out where to slot it in because it features recordings from as early as 1964 all the way up through 1978 when they did a special session at Shepperton Film Studios to be part of the movie, The Kids Are All Right. But I would say that you want to have this on vinyl because the way that it takes you through their career. I don't know if it's been bulked up in the streaming versions or deluxe versions. The other thing I like about it is it's got this cool top pull cover. You know, it's not a gatefold, it's a top pull. And then the inner sleeves are designed to look like film cans, and they're actually even embossed. So it's just kind of a nice on the back, The Who, The Kids Are All Right, it's embossed. Not sure you can see that, but that's kind of gives it a cool feel that you can't get in any other way. It also came with this great book filled with all the photos and little bits of description or background for each song. I really, really like it. It's obviously a classic. $15 for a copy like this is the median price. It's just kind of crazy. Now, the next band is one who is known for, like the Beatles and a couple other bands, for giving up their live career. That wasn't because they were bad on stage. It was because their leader, Andy Partridge, got stage fright. And I think they also realized they could accomplish more but just by honing their studio craft and maybe realize more of their dreams that way. But they were actually a very, very good live band. There's very little out there that gives you a sense of that. There's a few things, maybe a few bootlegs, maybe something was issued in the last 20 years that tells you something about it. But when I was buying all my XTC records and I found this, I was very excited. This is called Live and More. It's an EP or a mini LP. It has 6 songs on it, and 3 of them were recorded live on stage. The Rainbow, the Lyceum, and one on the BBC. All from 1979, or one from 1980, Living Through Another Cuba, running into Generals and Majors, absolutely spectacular. Set Myself on Fire, you really get to hear Andy Partridge let go on guitar, which he didn't do so much on record. And then it's got bonus tracks on here. Don't Loose Your Temper, Smokeless Zone, a Colin Moulding, really good song. The Somnambulist, an interesting song. So the other thing that's cool is that this was a Japanese release. So it comes with the Japanese lyric sheet and also the Obi strip. People like those things a lot. And then it's also got this intriguing giant label. I haven't seen that too often. And you can see on the front here, it's called the Virgin Pick label. Kind of neat. Came out in 1981. You can find a copy like this for about $18. Next up, we have another great band that you could call post-punk. Maybe XTC might slide into new wave. We can argue about that later. Public Image Limited. Public Image Limited put out an album called Live in Tokyo, which is really quite dire. That's the one, however, that's more well-respected. This was their first live album and the only one featuring Jah Wobble, Keith Levine, the original guys in the band. Now, it was released kind of as a rush job to help with an advance from Virgin. There was some financial shenanigans going on, and John Lydon even said, don't buy it, it's crap or whatever. But I was listening to it the other day, and it does start off a little rough. I hadn't listened to it in a while. Starts off a little rough with Theme, and then it builds slowly. They get more comfortable on stage. By the end, Attack and Pop Tones, really, really good performances. The other thing that's neat about it is you get the cover, which has a painting by John Lydon on it. It's supposed to depict him and Keith Levine and Jeanette Lee, I believe. And then you also get the song titles all in French because it's called Paris au Printemps. And I like that it says Image Publique SA, and they put the PIL sticker on there so people wouldn't get confused. But it's pretty much a forgotten record, discredited. You can find one like that for about $12. Moving further into the 80s, that was recorded in 1980 and released in 1981. Now we have something recorded in 1983, Roxy Music on the Avalon Tour. I have a full-length concert that was put out on CD probably 10 years later. And it's pretty good, but it feels a little like a run-through, I don't know, rushed or unengaging. Whereas this EP, also with the French title, Musique Roxy, The High Road, only 4 songs, absolutely stunning performances. Side 1 is Can't Let Go, which was from a Brian Ferry solo album, so that was an interesting choice. And My Only Love, another great song from a Roxy Music from the Flesh and Blood album. And then side 2, you get their cover of Like a Hurricane by Neil Young. Absolutely gorgeous. And then even more heartbreaking, Jealous Guy, the John Lennon song. When Brian Ferry goes into the whistling part, it's heart-stopping. These 4 songs are all you need. One of the things I love about this record is the way when the songs end, they seem to be coming in for a landing. It's like boom, boom, ooh. Never heard anything else like it. I don't even know if a full length from these concerts or this concert, wherever it was recorded, it's recorded at the Apollo Theatre, Glasgow. I don't even know if that full concert makes sense in the way that these 4 songs do. Or if the full-length concert, which I think might have been from the same venue, maybe it was a different night. I don't know what the story is behind it. But I can tell you that if you find this for $3, which is the median price, just buy it, put it on, you will be blown away. All right, we're jumping forward 20, 30 years. 83, 93, 03, 13, Divine Fits, 2013. Now this was a side project, Britt Daniel from Spoon and members of Wolf Eyes putting together a really great sound. Their first album, just called Divine Fits, it's an excellent album. And this was recorded live at Third Man Records. Third Man has actually put out a number of these live in-store things. They sound fantastic. They're usually not very expensive. This one you could probably find for under $10. I think I probably paid 12 or 15 when it came out new. For some reason, it's just sort of not on anybody's radar as anything great. One really cool thing about it is that they cover Lost by Frank Ocean. It's really a great version of it. They also have the Boys Next Door Shivers, which was on the Divine Fits album. So side one is all stuff from the album. I wish I saw them live because they only did this thing once. They put out one album, they went on one tour, and that's it. We've gotten great Spoon music since then, but Divine Fits was kind of its own thing. So this is a great little souvenir of that venture by Britt Daniel. Next we have from 2018, the band called Wooden Ships, S-H-J-I-P-S. Not sure how you're supposed to pronounce the J. I just say Wooden Ships. Wooden Ships is sort of a sludgy, psych boogie band that I think their natural habitat is actually on stage. Some of their studio stuff takes a little while to achieve liftoff. It's all good. They're very, very good. But I remember there was something called Volume 2 that they put out that had one live song on it, and that was the one that really got me. And that's on here as well, Death's Not Your Friend. But this is a whole concert from 2018. Recorded at Slim's in San Francisco. For some reason, this has never been released on streaming or other format than this. I actually got it from Merch, whatever that mail order company is. And if you can find it, it's going to cost you about $38, $40. Partly, I think, because it's never been issued in any other form, and also because it's got this super cool gold embossed pattern on the cover. Absolutely fantastic record. Okay, we are coming to the end, and for our last item we have here another album that is not on any streaming service, and I respect Billie Eilish for that, because she could easily put this out in any form and rack up millions of plays without even thinking about it. This was also recorded live at Third Man Records, just her and her brother Phineas. Some of it's acoustic. They run through songs from throughout her first album and the EP that preceded it. It's actually recorded on November 6, 2019, released in 2020. It was originally only available in the stores, the two Third Man stores, one in Detroit, one in Nashville. There were also several that she splattered paint on the cover that cost hundreds of dollars even when they came out. Now, a lot of people did go to those Third Man stores and buy them just to sell them. I was bidding hard on this thing when it first came out on eBay. But when it gets to $80, I'm like, no, sorry, can't do it. But then I was very excited that it was put out again in an edition of 40,000 for Record Store Day. And this was in 2020, the year of lockdown. So I didn't go anywhere to buy it, but I was able to score it through the Rough Trade site. Billie Eilish, live at Third Man Records. Now, this will cost you about $50 because 40,000 copies may not be enough to satisfy the Billie Eilish fan base. I was also pressed on this nice blue vinyl and comes with an insert, a black insert. Oh, it's more than just a black insert. It's a Third Man poster. Thanks, Jack White, for that. But I'm really glad they put that out. One thing I will say about it is the audience is a little bit involved, which they always are at a Billie Eilish concert. And I love that when I listen to like a bootleg from Sydney, Australia with 20,000 people all singing along and just going crazy. You kind of wish they had laid back a little bit for this intimate acoustic set. But it's still great. It also proves what a great singer she is, what a great songwriter she is, what a great arranger Phineas is. I'm a fan. It's a great record to have. Can't find it anywhere else but on vinyl. So there you have it. 20 albums, live albums that are fun to have on vinyl. It's Jeremy Shatan for AnEarful. Thanks for watching.